Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll just wait a couple more minutes to see if a few more are going to join us. We've already got almost 50 in the room, which is fantastic. And 200 people register. And so many questions, Brian, so many questions. Over 50 questions have come in, which is really exciting. Yeah, we're really chuffed. And from all across the country, universities all across the UK, incredible range of students with different backgrounds, masters, PhDs and bachelors, and from, I don't even know how many countries. We are truly global today. Some of the countries I'm not even sure I've heard of, but yeah, a lot of countries. We've got over 60 people in the room now, so let's just give it a couple of more minutes, and then we can get going.
Perfect.
So yeah, you're a popular man. People want to hear what you've got to say.
No pressure, Adam. Thanks very much for that.
No pressure. So Nick, we've got 70 people in the room. So let me start by firstly welcoming everybody in the room. Thank you for taking the time out this Tuesday afternoon, taking a break from your studies to join us for this webinar. And a special thank you to Brian, Early Careers Talent Acquisition Manager at Aon. Very kind of you to give up your time to be with us this afternoon. I know you're a very busy man, genuinely very busy man. You've run out of one thing to join us. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure, Adam. Happy to be here.
It might be, if it's okay, just give us a brief introduction so we know who our expert is today.
And I'm assuming you mean me, Adam. So yeah, let me just take it from there. So yeah, my name is Brian Sinclair. I currently work as the EMEA Early Careers Talent Acquisition Manager at Aon. I've been at Aon about 2.5 years now, but I've been doing early careers for probably 18 years or so, across a range of different industries, primarily looking after graduate recruitment into everything of post-school leavers. So people who've left academia and want to enter the world of work. So apprentices, school leaver programs, we do interns, industrial placements, graduate programs. I've done everything up as far as MBA recruitment, and then some roles, some wider remits I've had, everything up as far as kind of senior management recruitment as well. I think it's easier to say the industries I've not worked in. So I think the only one I've really not had any kind of real foothold in is probably legal recruitment. But my daughter's been applying for that, so I think I'm a little bit first in what she's been applying to. So I could possibly field the question to if one is in the list. But yeah, quite industry agnostic. Quite happy to talk about different industries. But my role here today is just to really share kind of unbiased, sort of just generic advice to students applying. It's not necessarily to sell Aon or the Aon kind of the industry that I work in. It's more just to help the students get the job. And that's why I do these calls, Adam, as I love to help students see themselves in different ways, get the interest they need, to the advice they need, so they can get hopefully their dream job, if that makes sense. I can't answer all the questions. I don't think. I'm not that good, but I will do my best, Adam.
Sure. No, fantastic. Thank you. And I say we have had a lot of questions. And we don't have much time. We're 45 minutes today. And as we said in our marketing of this, it's very much focused on the application process. So things around CVs, LinkedIn. We've had a lot of questions. Understandably, it's an international market. A lot of questions about visas and visa applications. Now, neither of us are experts on that, so that's not an area we are going to cover today. But for those that have sent questions through, we are working to look to another webinar where we can really address specifically some of the visa-related questions. Today, it's really about the application process and how to sell yourself and how to get yourself in front of those people. So thank you for everyone that did send questions about visas. We're not the best people to help you on that, but we're looking for people who can, and obviously we'll get back to anyone on that. So, and there's been some very specific industry related questions. We've got a few from biomedicine. I'm not sure we can really answer very specific, but we can give quite general when it is, how do I get into my industry? So let's start. And, you know, I don't know if the people that have sent the questions are here. It'd be really great if they could ask the questions. So I'm going to just put it out there. I'm going to name one or two people. And if you're here, raise your hand, and then we can ask, or drop in chat that I'm here, and then either we can put your microphone on or I can ask the question for you. So the one at the top of my list, Brian, the first question is from, and again, everybody, please excuse my pronunciation on some of these names. But if I start with Martin, is an easier name for me, who's at St Andrews. I don't know if Martin is here from St Andrews. He's here, but he can't use his mic. Hi, Martin. Thanks for joining and thanks for your question. So Martin said he's just about to wrap up his degree and he's trying to land his first job since high school. He's always struggled to navigate the process of applying for jobs and doesn't quite know where to start. Where do you start when you've never applied for a job before, Brian?
It depends on what you mean by start. So let's go right back to the basics. And the first thing you need to think about is, I think for me, it's just questions to ask yourself. So before we get into writing CVs, best place to search for jobs, is really thinking about it yourself. So there's probably a couple of key questions to ask. One is why. But I think first question really, is who. So who are you? What's good about you? What do you like doing? What are you naturally leaning towards? And then who do you want to work for, and does that match? So if you like, say, very basic things, like I like to travel quite a lot, I'm quite happy to work from home, or I like having to kind of do long hours, those questions will point you into the right sort of company to work for. So traveling a lot, might think of consultancy firms, or maybe big international firms longer term. If you like to kind of work from home quite a lot, maybe an IT job or companies that have remote working plans. So have a think about who you really are, what you kind of enjoy doing, and then think about the companies who could match that. If you don't like traveling, if you don't like kind of long hours, maybe consultancy firms or law firms may not be right for you. One of the big things for me when I used to work in investment management firms was confidence. If you're not a super confident candidate, then an investor's not going to give you his tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds to invest in if you're just unsure. So something like that. Think really basically, who are you and who do you want to work for? Then after that, you can think, go ahead.
Go on. I was going to say, and I think be really honest with yourself.
Yes.
Right. I think some people look at industries or jobs and think it looks glamorous, or I want to do that, or I can make lots of money. And they lie to themselves. I've had this experience. I worked in recruitment consultancy years back, and I managed our graduate intake. And very quick, and we had a very rigorous recruitment process with interviews and assessment centres. And part of recruitment is cold calling. And I had one guy, he was terrified even when the phone rang. He couldn't pick up the phone. And we didn't hide anything about the job, but if you're terrified of picking up the phone to make cold calls, a job in sales or recruitment is not for you. It may seem glamorous, but you're not doing yourself any favors by going down that route. You're hindering yourself, I think.
Yes, I'd agree. So there's a who are you and who are you applying to, or what that company look like is quite a key question. Then there's some practical stuff like where and when. So where is the role? Can I get to the office, particularly with the shift to, return to work and being in the office? Can you get there every day? Does that work for you? And then when? So when do you graduate? When can you realistically start a full-time job? Sometimes graduates apply, or you have first-year students applying for graduate jobs. They can't really start. So very basically after that. But then after that, when you're getting into the actual applications, the three things for me is the what, how, and why. So what kind of technical expertise and skills or academic knowledge do you have? So can you actually do the job? The how is your behaviors, interpersonal style, your work style, how you do the job, what's your kind of go-to kind of ways of working. So if you're real, I want the detail, I want to analyze it, I want to slowly kind of digest it and then process, then a fast-paced organization where you'd have to make decisions instantly is not going to be for you. Equally, if you like fast-paced and quick decisions and you want to fly an instinct, maybe things like audit and compliance aren't for you as well. And then why? This for me is a very generic piece of advice with employers is, why do you want to work here? If you can't tell me why you've sat in front of me today, why you've applied for the job, what really resonates, what really motivates you for the role, what research you've done to really tell me I really want that job, then I'm thinking you just want any job, and maybe not us.
Completely.
And you might just kind of take the job and then leave in a few years' time, or you realize actually that's not what I thought it was because you haven't done the research. And that becomes a risk for the employer to take you on, particularly if you're going to invest in your training, development, professional qualifications, or just the time your team are going to put into coaching and managing and mentoring you. So for me, why is truly important. And they matter going along further into your career, but we can maybe look at that at a different call. And then
No,
to your last point, Adam.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And quite honestly, I've interviewed a lot of people in my career in different roles. And for me, it is that motivation and that genuinely wanting to work for you, wanting a job for you, for that company in that place. I've spent the last few years working in education in Asia, and a lot of people want to come to Asian countries to live, and they will just send their CVs anywhere. And it's very quick. You very quickly realize they're looking for a job. They won't get to the next stage with me. But thank you. Right. Great start. Let's move on. The next person, I think it follows on. If they're here, again, my apologies. Yu Sheng Xu. I don't know if Yu Sheng Xu is here. Yeah, thanks, Martin. Yu Sheng is at Strathclyde. I don't know if they are here. Something just popped up. I'm not sure. Okay.
Are we starting north of the border, Adam? Is that what we're doing? St Andrews,
yes.
Clyde.
Yes, yeah, working our way down. Yu Sheng was asking how to make your CV and experience as appealing as possible in this competitive job market.
So there's lots of CV advice, and I know CVs are a personal document and it's representing you and telling your story. CV literally means curriculum vitae, which means story of my life. So people kind of get, quite precious about them. So I'm not going to critique CVs per se, but one thing to think about in terms of perhaps tailoring your CV and making it stand out for employers is try to match the words that they use in the job description and the website on your CV. So a very basic example would be, do they talk about teamwork, team working, team workers, team leadership, or collaboration? It's a bit of a word association game, but if you use the same words they use on the job description, they use in the way they describe their company, you'll start to sound more like someone who actually works there. If you repeat that through the process in any application form, in any kind of video interview, in an actual interview, group exercise at the assessment center, the more you use the company's version of the words and the terms, the more relevant you'll look, and the more they'll almost subconsciously go, she sounds like she actually works it. She sounds like she's read into it. She understands it. And things like, are you customer centric? Are you customer focused? Are you client centric, client focused? It may not matter to the kind of the casual reader that it's the same thing. It's a synonym. It matches fine. How specific need to be. But if you want a competitive edge, the more you start to sound like the actual employer you work for, it just shows you've done your research and you're talking their language, their corporate language. So just tailor that. And yeah, ChatGPT will do that for you. Please, here's the job description. Here's our website. Please tailor my CV. And it might be small, minor changes, but it just means you just look and sound more like an employee. That's one step closer.
So you would say that using AI is valuable and should be done, because there's obviously huge hot potato, a lot of debate. Should people use AI for their CVs? What are you thinking? And
if you use AI in a morally correct way, if you're trying to invent stuff on your CV or use AI hallucinations, as they're called, and it's not really you, when you sit in front of a human at the assessment center and they're asked you to kind of talk more about that example that AI just made up for you or rephrase really powerfully for you, and you're not using that language as you actually talk like in the moment, they'll wonder, it can go against you. Like, really not as strong in person as they were on paper, and they'll suspect the use of AI. So AI can be helpful to make you a little bit better. Kind of takes you a bit away from the, to the more polished version of yourself, or it can make a good candidate great, perhaps, but it can't make a bad candidate, good. And if you're found there for having used AI, that's, you've made stuff up, that will actually undo everything else in the application form because it's just not you. And I can't hire the AI version of you. You can't, a lot of roles you can't use AI in. So you're just setting yourself with a fail. So use it to help. Same way you might have got advice on a CV or advice on practice of an interview and networking to get all that insider knowledge. That helps, but you've still got to be you and deliver on the day in person.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's continue on that theme. It's a similar question. So is Cabello, who is at King's, we'll come down to London, Cabello or Cabello, from King's, if you're here. Yes, you are here. Thank you for joining us. I will ask Brian your question because I think it links to this. So Cabello asks, what are some things that international students have to outline in their cover letters and CVs to set themselves apart from other students? So obviously today we've got probably 50 or 60 countries represented here, almost all international students. So thank you for the question. Brian, what are your thoughts?
I honestly think a lot of international students are doing themselves a disfavor. So I think if you put it into context, and a lot of recruiters have been interested in contextual recruitment and grades from certain schools versus others, having studied it in context, does it make a real differentiator? So if you put it in comparison, say a UK student, and they're due to start university, and the parents may drive 200 miles up the road and drop them off. They're in the same culture, speaking the same language, probably got a packed lunch from the parents, and they're bringing everything from home, and it's not that different. The room they're in the university might be very similar to the room in their bedroom at home anyways. I think that compare that to an international student who's traveled 3,500 miles, different culture, different language, different kind of foods, different just everything, and you're on your own. There's very rarely going to be someone from the same university as you, possibly the same country. That I think should be quantified slightly differently in the world of early careers. That kind of resilience, adaptability, flexibility. You've probably had a harder time adjusting and surviving through that kind of period. And we want to see evidence that you've learned from that. You've taken on board, what have you gained from it, and then replay that back to us during an interview. If you bury it and forget about it and say it's just business as usual, it's not. You've actually gone through some pretty challenging times to make that much larger adjustment than a UK student traveling up the country a little bit to a UK university. And that should really be valued. And particularly as well, I think it's unique in the UK. They don't really value the second languages. So I think leverage into the things you bring as an international student, there's more to your life experience that should make you a stronger, better candidate, particularly if the company's going to ask you to transition to managing your own time, taking on workload and managing time to get it done, that level of responsibility. You ideally should be better able to deal with that if you've gone through a kind of tough transition and indeed managed it for 3 years and still got a good qualification. So I think leverage that to your advantage, I would say anyways.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So I've seen some questions that are coming in. I'm going to ask quite a generic one. So I just had a question from Moe. It links to a couple of other questions around work experience. I've got Abby Campbell at Edinburgh. It's not all about Scotland, but we'll work through all the Scottish universities first. If Abby is here, hi Abby. And others have asked, hi Abby. Thank you for your question. A few people have asked something similar. So I'll read Abby's, which is, what advice would you give to a student concerned about hitting the right balance of breadth depth in their work experience? Is work experience in a wide variety of industries off-putting to employers? And there's similar questions from others here.
Okay, so a couple of things in that. One is, yes, it could be off-putting if you've jumped around for no reason. It may look like you're a candidate who doesn't have a sense of direction or don't know what you want. If you can put that into context, you just needed a job, you just needed some work, some of the past through university, you know, stuff like that. That's justifiable and that's fine, and that won't go against you. If you've done a couple of different internships in a couple of different industries, you've applied to us as well, and we asked you in the interview, have you applied to anywhere else? And we get a sense that you're just not sure what you want and you're just trying loads of different things, and that scattergun approach, you're going to have a hard time convincing the employer, like I said earlier on, that you're really going to stay. So if you have moved around, if you have got some kind of different experience, that's fine. Second thing to know, sometimes we're kind of quite aware of it in graduate recruitment, not just particularly at Aon, but across my career. One thing we do look out for is some people, I'm okay for you to transfer your skills, just don't transfer your attitude if it's wrong. I've been in companies where it's been perfectly acceptable to talk down to people, talk down to the cleaners, talk down to the reception staff. I don't personally buy into that. I don't like it. But if you join a similar organization, or you've joined us from a similar organization, and that behavior has been okay, and you join here and bring it with you, that's not good. So for us as a graduate recruitment team or the development team, it's easier to kind of train than untrain. So if you've got some poor behaviors, some bad habits you've picked up along the way, that's not going to help you in your application form. But the thing is think about, if you dig back into your CV and try translate things into more generic terms. If you're explaining it to someone who's not in the industry you were in, and try use some less business terms and acronyms, if you get to that, you probably find there's some common denominators, some transferable skills, some things that you did at university, at school, in these part-time work experiences that actually are fairly generic skills that are valued, of course, in an organization. You're going to see a lot of companies looking for things like communication skills, and look at things like, can you problem solve? Can you work in a team? If you've evidence of those from wherever you've got them, gained them, leverage those in an application form. And if you can give a reason why you've kind of jumped from part-time job to part-time job, because it's in different terms, different seasons, wherever, that's fine. Just make sure it doesn't look like you're just a job hopper. You don't know what you want, and there's no guarantee you'll stay with us either. That's the biggest risk we're looking out for in a selection process. Does that help? Does that answer the question?
That answers for me. And then Abby, do you have any follow-up questions? Does that help you? Does that answer your question? Drop us a note. It's great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Brian. So, do we have, back to London, my Leo, maybe. I've got a Mai who's studying at Imperial. If you're here, hello. If not, I'm going to go ahead and ask you a question, which is, how do you effectively conduct networking on LinkedIn for jobs and roles that you're interested in? So how to best utilize LinkedIn? Any top tips?
I'll give you two kind of tips, very generic. I'll go into the mechanism of LinkedIn too much. That's probably another call itself, Adam. But one is, I've learned this lesson. So I'm a recruiter. I would facilitate the selection process, but I'm not the decision maker. So if you email me and ask me for insight and advice, I can give you, like I'm doing on the call today, generic advice. But I'm an influencer. I'm not a decision maker. And I will get every day in LinkedIn at least one or two of those emails. Can you look at my CV? Can you give me advice? I'm really sorry, but I don't have time to spend 10, 15 minutes with every candidate who connects and asks you those questions. I will try to give generic advice. Every once in a while, I spot a theme in the questions coming through, and I'll post something on LinkedIn. So by all means, follow me, connect with me, and I will do it. But if you start asking me for my time to review your CV and give you a summary and advice, I'm not a careers advisor. I do some career mentoring, but that's through a different party, different platform, and I do that sporadically at best. I try to do more of these bigger events and give generic advice. That's the first thing is to, but the lesson for me was, I know if you do speak to a line manager, someone in the job, someone who's doing the job you aspire to join, they do like to get those emails because they don't get them as often as I do. So for them, it's a novelty. So if you phrase it well and ask the question, then you will kind of sometimes get the time. And the key thing is, this is really leaning to the second point, don't ask them for a favor. Don't ask them to do something for you. Who are you to lean in? The first conversation is give me something. You don't know who I am. I've no connection, but I want you to give me something. Give me advice. Help me get a job. Read my CV. You're not going to get by and large, you probably won't get a positive response to that. Instead, say, dear line manager, dear hiring manager, dear whoever it is, I like the sound of your job. It sounds really interesting. Could you spend 5 minutes just telling me a bit more about it? Happy to join you for a coffee if that's easier. You're then playing into someone's ego, and you're not asking anything to them to tell you about what they're actually doing. And I find you'll probably find you'll get a much higher rate of response to that by just saying, hey, I'm not asking for anything. Just tell me about yourself. Tell me about your role. The trick behind that, though, is if you email 50 people, I don't know, 50, 500, 510, whatever you've time to do, and you get like a 10% return and they chat to you, what they do is they start talking their language to you, the language of the industry, the buzzwords, the terminology. People are familiar with it and you can summarize it particularly well because they're used to it and they can kind of boil it right down to kind of key nuggets. You take that, you have your next conversation, and suddenly you realize you're picking up the language and the nuances and the words. It could lead on to, this is not my tip, this is from a book called Designing Your Life. It's design theory kind of knowledge. You could lead on to, then you eventually have a conversation with someone and go, whoa, you really sound like you know your stuff. You really sound like you're good. I think George over and my colleague over in the department is looking for a role. I'm going to have a word with him. Can you email me in the CV? So by networking in that way, not asking for something without giving in the first place, but just saying, talk to me about what you do. You might get an email back. You might get an offer of a call. You might get invited in for coffee. Depends on what you could do, how you can do, how far they are from you, etc. But the more you do that, you're gaining from that. You're not just getting a rejection for sending off a CV blandly. You're gaining knowledge and insight and that way of describing what the role is. And yes, that's not guaranteed, but the argument is there's a higher chance you can be aware of jobs before they even advertise, and you've got that instant kind of recognition and instant kind of recommendation to speak to somebody because you sound like you know your stuff. So that's how I would do LinkedIn networking is, just nice friendly approach and just no kind of commitment, no ask, no pressure. Just tell me about yourself. And I think you get probably a slightly higher return investment. You definitely get a response from me, but you might get one from someone in the industry who is probably more of an influence, or more of not an influence, a decision maker for you, if that helps.
Okay, super. Thank you. I want to go to Salford. If Amy is with us from Salford, Amy Blenkiron, maybe. I don't know if Amy has joined us from Salford. Here is her question, which is, what's the one thing that impresses you on an international student's application? And what's the thing that you hate to see?
The one thing that impresses me, I mean, there's loads of things over the years that do impress me. I think more broadly, what really does impress me is a sense of direction. So looking at a CV and application more broadly, I think top tip for me is what is the key thread in the CV. So I always look at your hobbies or look at your academics or look at the work experience or your personal statement. Does it all tell me the same thing? You're really interested in working in this particular industry, this particular kind of area. Particularly, the key thing is if you're coming from abroad and you want to get into a specific industry, have you joined a society? Have you kind of got involved to gain that kind of wider knowledge? Because that tells me two things. One, I get a sense of direction, but also tells me you're more than just the kind of academic. You're more than just that straight A grade student. You've got a wider sense of kind of, there's more to you, if that makes sense. You're just a broader, more interesting candidate. So we want to see that. And even if you will have a couple of things on your CV, I've joined the investment society and I've progressed through it, but I'm also part of the hockey team or something like that. That just shows, yeah, you're more than the sum of your parts. You've got more to give. You're more than the 9 to 5 candidate. You've got a little bit more left in the tank, and you can kind of add that to us when we join as an organization. So I think that impresses me when you have those kind of extracurricular things and shows you've got more in it. The flip side of that is I really have a pet peeve, and it's really kind of revealing everything now, Adam, is when candidates list really droll things on their CV that are just absolutely of no point whatsoever. So I like to socialize. I like to watch football. I like to
drink
kind of,
beer. Is that what
yeah,
it means?
it's just real, they're real passive activity. So the key thing is there's a really useful question to bear in mind when writing a CV and a hobbies and pastimes or filling an application form. And it comes from, I believe it's from when you, if you ever choose to apply to a Harvard MBA course. And they ask the question along the lines of, name something you've chosen to learn the last 2 years and what progress have you made? So that's probably university, something you've chosen to do in the last 3 years having joined university and what progress you made. Big difference between someone who joined the football team and is still on the bench versus someone who joined the football team and is now captain of the team. You might have started to learn guitar. Now you're in a band playing guitar regularly, not still kind of learning out the basic chords. You've learned a language. You've learned a martial art. Whatever it is, if you can think about how do I make that way more impressive to the employer by saying, I started doing this and now I'm here, whether it's ballet, whether it's salsa dancing, it just shows that commitment that you're really, you're going to stick to something and you're going to progress it. Because at the end of the day, you've chosen it. You chose to go to the Taekwondo classes. You chose to go to guitar lessons. You chose to go to, Spanish lessons or salsa lessons, and you've progressed in it. That's way more impressive than just listing so many random things in the CV that just sort of vaguely interested. And I will warn you, we did have once a candidate said on a CV, he was interested in speed chess. Turns out he put it down because he thought, well, it sounds interesting, and the likelihood of someone actually also liking it is quite low. Why did the interviewer pick a CV? Because the interviewer likes speed chess. I was expecting a conversation around it.
Oh,
And it caught
man.
the candidate out really, really awkwardly. He had to try backtrack and say, well, I'm kind of interested and I want to learn more. The interviewer's going to go, but you said you did it on the CV. So back to that point about AI hallucinations and lying in the CV. Don't do that. But think about what have you chosen to learn in the last 2 years and what progress have you made? A sentence or a bullet point on that is way more impressive than I watch football. I support this team. I socialize with my friends. Think more active. Think of what can say you're someone who does a little bit more than the Monday to Friday 9 to 5. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense, yes. And if Amy's still here or joined us, I hope that answered your question. Okay, let's go back to London. And if Kazin Zhang is with us, Kazin at Imperial, I believe. I don't know if Kazin is here. Again, apologies for my pronunciation. Maybe they're here and I'm mispronouncing. So my apologies there. The question, though, is when or what is the optimal time? When is the optimal time to apply for graduate positions?
Okay, so it's quite a hard one to answer because it's quite a movable feast really. The timelines can change. So employers are keen to get roles out there and advertised so students apply as soon as possible, get them in. But I would say don't panic. Don't scattergun. Don't really kind of just apply to everything and send off CVs and applications. It will come up longer term when you're in front of the interviewer and they're asking, why did you apply? And you're like, not sure. Like we said earlier on, the what, how, and why. But equally, don't wait until the closing day because closing dates are often there as a notional kind of idea. We'll probably close on the, 10th of March. And then you log on the 9th of March to lodge an application in. And what we might find is they already closed. They closed in February because you just had too many applications. So that's it. We've had enough. And those companies reserve the right to close applications down. And then equally, I sound quite cynical, but I really struggle with I just logged on at the last minute to apply and I couldn't because I just had an injury or I had a bereavement. And I sympathize, I get it. I've been through bereavements and injuries before, but why did you leave it to the last minute? I have this conversation with my kids all the time. More work comes in on a regular basis. More stuff happens in life. Deal what you need to deal with today before it compounds and more comes up. So don't panic, don't apply, don't send off a random application just because it's open and it sounds vaguely interesting. Have a little think, but do get it in before the closing date because when you apply, very few companies these days close, and then process applications. They'll process on a rolling basis. And equally, if you apply and then you don't do the test and you ask for extensions, well, the candidates have done the test and are leapfrogging you, and then they're further in the process. And when the business goes, you know what, we've got enough candidates in the pipeline, let's just shut up shop. We're going to look at things like, well, to put every candidate to an online test or to a video interview, that costs us money. They haven't done it yet. They've had plenty of time to do it. Let's just stop it and let's just reject the applications, save ourselves the money in an interview, because we've enough further on in the pipeline. We're probably not going to need that many more coming through. So get in. So I would often think about it in kind of three terms. So look at, digest the information, discern, and then decide. Don't just kind of, ready, aim, fire, ready, fire, aim. Have a think about, again, the questions I said earlier on. Is this company right for me? Have a real read into it. And then if you do submit an application in reasonable time, you're in the mix and you're in play and you've kind of got a good chance. Leave it at the last minute. And the other thing to say, is if you are applying last minute, if we're doing rolling recruitment, we could have had, 40 positions available in that role, that location. You apply very last minute, you might have one left, and you're against all the other candidates applied late. Get in, get considered, get it. And then if you're not successful, at least then you can go, do you know what? I can now focus on other applications rather than waiting to hear back from this employer. So don't panic, but do apply ASAP. Otherwise, the deadline might kind of take over, and you don't get a chance anyways. You don't get your foot in the door. So yeah, it's not an easy one, but yeah, don't wait till the last minute, basically.
Okay, great, thank you. So it'll be quite, there's a few people that are in a similar situation. Here we had Moed has put on here, and others. I could list many here. Georgia, who's at Kingston. I've got Abigana, who's at Northumbria, and a few others who are all saying, look, I'm sending out lots of applications and I'm just not getting the response. I'm getting either rejection letters. What can I do? And I know, and then somebody else earlier even said, I know there's not a simple answer to this, but how do I increase? Are there any tips, whether it's to do with getting through an ATS, whether it's when or what to apply, from your experience? I know we talked before about a silver bullet. Is there anything that people should be doing when they're constantly getting the rejection letters? And we've had it from a few people. It's like, what can I do?
I really sympathize. I've been there. I've applied for my grad job back in the day, and you go through applications and it's really, really hard. And you're kind of playing game theory. You don't know what they want. You're kind of, this is the best of me, and hopefully that matches to what they're actually looking for. Sometimes it's a time kind of situation where they've already filled roles in that location or that particular program, and you didn't quite get considered. And it's the other side of it is us as recruiters. We don't have a set criteria. If someone says this, boom, they're straight to. We don't have that golden buzzer like you have at Britain's Got Talent. There is no instant pass. There's something that might impress us, and there's a good chance you then get progressed to the next stage. That's as best as we can do. So if we had a silver bullet, if we knew we wanted something in a particular candidate, we just straight out asked for it. You'd apply and you get the job in. Back in the day, you'd love the simplicity of, well, you just email in your degree certificate, we email you a job offer. It doesn't quite work that way. Or posting your degree certificate, we post you a job offer. It's way more nuanced. So it's just looking at all the different things you could do at each stage. So like I said, before applying, deciding, I personally would, not encourage people applying for hundreds of roles unless you're using some tool to do that. But I think no matter how strong or confident you are as an individual, if you apply to 100 jobs, you're going to get 99 rejections. You're going to get one job, and that's all you can do. And that's hard, no matter how strong or confident you are. So I would always try not to put yourself in that situation. I know it's hard. You're going to keep applying till you get a job. But try, like I said, have a little think about, do the kind of the digest the information, discern which is right for you, and then decide which one to apply for. And if you do that little bit of extra research up front, then your chances of actually getting the job do actually increase. That will come across in the way you apply, the things you say in the selection process, particularly at the assessment centres or the final interviews. We're going to go, right, this candidate really wants to work it. They've done the research. They're really interested in it. So try to tailor as much as possible. Try to research the company, and just try best. There's no silver bullet. There's no magic formula. If there was, we'd be using it on the recruitment side for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure that helps, but yeah, that's the reality of the situation.
We were talking before. There was a specific example you were talking about.
Oh yeah, there's a example of an international student who applied. So I think it's worth remembering to take away from the call. So I know we're just conscious of time, so let me finish off quickly on this one. So I was in a previous company and a candidate applied for a role and got to the assessment centre and she was unsuccessful. So I kind of was ringing her back. She's from South America, I think she was. So I rang her back after the assessment to give her some feedback, and I was going through the feedback, what she did well, not so well, etc. And I came to one of the interview questions and I said, oh, there was a question here about resilience. It didn't seem to do particularly well. And the guy said, well, I thought I'd have a really good answer for resilience. I said, okay, well, just out of curiosity, what was the answer you gave? She told a story about how she'd come from, I think it was South America, and she came to the UK, and at the university she was at, there was a dressage team, like a horse jumping team. She applied to go on the team and didn't get on the team. Apparently she didn't ride horses the right way or didn't know dressage well enough and didn't get on. But she stayed supporting the team, really engaged, cheer them on, got to know the team, practice as well. Second year, tried out for the team, got on the team, was successful, kind of part of the team, loved having got to know all the team members. So she was really fully invested in it. Final year, she went for the kind of captain of the team. And what she said was the team had like the greatest success that year. Brilliant kind of results, lots of wood cups and trophies, etc. And I think that's actually a pretty good example of resilience. I looked down at the interviewer's notes and they'd literally written, in their notes was something about horses. So the point was the interviewer wasn't listening. He wasn't interested in that candidate at all and missed her brilliance. And that's the reality, unfortunately, sometimes. We try to stop it in interviewer training and hiring manager training. But sometimes I think that candidate had a lucky escape. She is probably a very good candidate. She went somewhere else. They noticed that and respected that and gave her recognition for her. And she's probably had a very successful career on the back of that. So it's air loss. So sometimes it's just worth remembering it is not you. It's the interviewer or it's the system or the process, and just keep going. I'm pretty sure she got a really good job somewhere else despite not passing our selection process and getting that kind of negative feedback. She probably hopefully retained that kind of core confidence and went on somewhere else. So it's not always you. Sometimes it is the system, it is the tool, it is the process, or in that particular case, it just wasn't a good line manager and probably a lucky escape.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. My goodness, the time has disappeared. We've run out of time and there's more questions coming in. There's a lot of questions we didn't answer. Brian, I wish we could stay here and keep squeezing more information out of you. What you shared today has been invaluable, really fantastic. Again, thank you. Thank you for everybody who's joined. Thank you for everyone that submitted questions. Apologies for those that we haven't been able to answer. I tried to group some together, some of the more generic ones, but hopefully we've covered some of the key themes around how to present yourself, what people are looking for, what they're not looking for in their CVs, their applications, their LinkedIn. So really appreciate it. What I would say to everybody is, again, some of the questions, very visa specific, we're not the people. But what's been interesting for us is a lot of the questions coming up, some of the industry specific, some of the visa. We will look and work to put on more webinars that are related to the questions that have been asked. And finally, just to say that your career services, all the university career services, working really hard every day. They have great networks, great insights. They are a huge, valuable source of information. Use them. They're there and they do an amazing job. So big shout out to the career services that are there to support you. Great. Good luck with everybody with your job hunting. Hopefully we'll see you on future webinars and we'll try and tailor them to some of the specifics. Hopefully, Brian, we'll see you on future webinars. Lots of people are saying thank you and they found it helpful and insightful. So again, you've given up your time for us. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Tuesday. Thank you.